Rain fell hard over Kigali, turning the long driveway of the Uwamana mansion into a river of gray. Nyasha Uwamana stood at the gate in a simple black dress, her hands trembling at her sides. Inside the house, funeral prayers had already begun for her father, Mzee Emmanuel Uwamana. The sound of quiet singing drifted through the open windows. People had come from everywhere to honor him. Business leaders, politicians, old friends, but his only daughter was standing outside. Nyasha took a step toward the door, ready to go in, ready to sit beside her father one last time. Before she could reach the entrance, Samuel Ndezizai moved in front of her. Her husband, the man she had trusted with her heart. He didn't look sad. He didn't look tired. He looked calm, almost satisfied. He blocked the doorway with his body and lowered his voice just enough so everyone could hear. "You don't belong here anymore." The words hit harder than the rain. Relatives stood under umbrellas pretending not to watch. A few whispered. Some avoided her eyes. Not one person stepped forward. Not one person asked if she was okay. Nyasha felt her chest tighten. Her father was gone. The one man who had always protected her. And now the man who promised to love her was shutting her out of her own home. In that moment her heart didn't break because of death. It broke because of betrayal. Samuel folded his arms, acting like the owner of everything behind him. The mansion, the guests, the legacy. What he didn't know was simple. Everything he was standing inside already belonged to her. As Nyasha stood in the rain, memories rushed back to her like a movie she could not pause. She remembered being a little girl running through the same mansion halls, her small shoes tapping against the marble floors. Her father, Mzee Emmanuel Uwamana, would pretend to chase her, laughing loudly until the whole house felt warm. To the world he was a powerful businessman. The founder of Uwamana Group, the man who built one of the biggest real estate empires in Rwanda from nothing but vision and discipline. People feared him, people respected him, but to Nyasha he was just Papa. He braided her hair badly when her mother was away. He showed up at every school event, even when he had meetings with ministers. At night he would sit on the edge of her bed and tell her, "You are my lioness. Never let anyone make you small." When she doubted herself he believed for her. When she cried he listened. As she grew older she started bringing friends home. One of them was Samuel Ndezizai. Samuel was different from the boys she knew. He was charming, confident. He spoke like a man who already saw himself at the top. He came from a simple background and wore his hunger like a badge of honor. Nyasha admired that about him. She thought it meant he would work hard and love deeply. Her father saw something else. One evening after Samuel left, her father sat quietly in his office. He looked at her with eyes that had built empires and survived battles. He said softly, "Some people love your heart. Others love your door." She laughed it off. She told him he was being too protective. She said Samuel loved her for who she was. Her father did not argue. He just nodded slowly. Nyasha married Samuel anyway. Standing in the rain years later she finally understood. That was her biggest mistake. The change did not happen in one day. It was slow, quiet, almost invisible at first. After the wedding, Samuel was still sweet in public. He held her hand at events. He called her my queen in front of guests. But at home something shifted. His tone became sharper. His patience became shorter. Small disagreements turned into long lectures about how she needed to grow up and think bigger. He started controlling simple things. What she wore to business dinners, who she met for lunch, how often she visited her father. If she questioned him, he would sigh and say she was being emotional. Then he began pushing her away from the family business. Whenever she tried to sit in meetings at Uwamana Group, Samuel would gently pull her aside. "These deals are complicated," he would say. "You don't understand money like I do." At first she laughed, then she stepped back, then she stopped going completely. She told herself he was just protecting her from stress. Meanwhile, Samuel stepped forward. He started arriving at the office in expensive new cars. He held private meetings behind closed doors. He gave instructions to senior employees as if he had built the company himself. Some staff looked confused. Others quickly adjusted and began calling him sir with extra respect. At home he talked about expansion plans like they were already his. He criticized decisions her father made. He spoke about the company as my empire without even realizing it. Nyasha noticed. Her father noticed more. There were moments when Mzee Emmanuel would watch Samuel carefully during dinner, his face calm but his eyes sharp. Once he asked a simple question about a property deal and Samuel answered too quickly, too confidently. The room felt tense. It was clear her father was preparing to step in, to correct something, to protect his daughter again. But before he could act, everything changed. He died suddenly. The house filled with mourners. Tears. And in the middle of it all, when people were not looking closely, Samuel smiled. Not wide, not obvious, but enough for Nyasha to feel it in her bones. The rain kept falling as the funeral prayers grew louder inside the mansion. Nyasha could hear the pastor's voice echoing through the large living room. She could almost picture where everyone was sitting. The front row where family should be. The seat that should have been hers. But she was still outside. Samuel stood at the entrance like a guard. When she tried to step past him again, he didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He simply pushed the door closed behind him and said quietly, "I told you. You don't belong here." The door clicked shut. That sound felt final. Her own cousins stood under the balcony roof watching the scene. Some of them looked uncomfortable, but none of them spoke. One of them quickly checked his phone, pretending not to notice. Her aunt leaned toward another relative and whispered not softly enough, "Maybe Samuel inherited everything. Maybe it's his house now." The words spread fast. You could see it in their faces, confusion turning into calculation. Then Samuel did something worse. He stepped forward, turned to the small crowd gathering at the entrance and said loudly, "From today this house belongs to me. I will decide who comes in." The disrespect was not private anymore. It was public, clear, intentional. Nyasha felt her face burn. Not from the rain, from humiliation. This was the house where she grew up. The house her father built brick by brick. And now she was being treated like a stranger at the gate. She stood there alone. No umbrella. No comfort. Just silence. For a moment she felt completely broken. Like everything had been taken from her at once. Her father. Her marriage. Her dignity. But then, through the noise of the rain and the whispers, a memory rose quietly in her mind. 6 months ago. Her father's office. The serious look on his face. Something he had done. Something Samuel never knew. And slowly, very slowly, Nyasha stopped shaking. 6 months earlier, her father had asked her to come to his office alone. Not the big boardroom. Not the dining table at home. His private office on the top floor of the Uemana Group building, where he made his most serious decisions. When she walked in that day, she immediately felt the difference. No jokes. No warm smile. He was sitting behind his desk, hands folded, eyes steady. The city skyline stretched behind him through the glass windows, but he wasn't looking at it. He was looking at her. "Sit down, my lioness," he said quietly. She sat, suddenly nervous. "I changed everything," he told her. At first she didn't understand what he meant. He opened a brown folder and slowly pushed it across the desk. Inside were documents. Stamped. Signed. Visual. "I transferred ownership," he continued. "The companies. The houses. The accounts. All of it." She blinked. "Transferred to who?" "To you. Not to Samuel. Not to any board member. Not to distant relatives who were always waiting for opportunity. Only her." He explained that every major asset under Uemana Group was now legally in her name. He had worked with the lawyers quietly. No public announcements. No family discussions. No celebration. "Why?" she asked softly. He leaned back in his chair and studied her face. "Because I have been watching," he said. "And because you are stronger than you think." He felt overwhelmed. She told him Samuel was handling most of the business matters now. That she wasn't as involved anymore. Her father's expression hardened slightly. "That is exactly why," he replied. Then he said something she would never forget. "Power is quiet. Let them reveal themselves." At the time she did not fully understand. She thought he was being overly cautious. Maybe even dramatic. But now, standing in the rain outside her own mansion, hearing her husband claim what was never his, the meaning became clear. Her father had already prepared her. And now it was time. The rain was still falling when Nyasha reached into her handbag and pulled out her phone. Her hands were steady now. Her breathing was calm. The humiliation was still there, but something stronger had replaced the fear. She scrolled to one name. Advocate Kofi Abebe. The family lawyer her father trusted for over 20 years. He picked up on the second ring. She did not explain everything. She did not cry. She simply said, "It's time. Please come to the house." There was a short pause on the other end. "I understand," he replied. 30 minutes later, the sound of engines broke through the quiet funeral prayers. 2 black cars turned into the driveway. Heads started to turn. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Even the pastor's voice inside softened as people looked toward the entrance. The car doors opened. Advocate Kofi Abebe stepped out first, dressed in a dark suit, calm and composed. Two other lawyers followed behind him carrying briefcases. Confusion spread across the crowd like fire. Samuel frowned. He adjusted his jacket and walked forward confidently, as if he was welcoming important guests to his home. The lawyers walked past Nyasha first. Advocate Abebe gave her a small nod. Respectful. Assured. Then he stepped into the house without asking permission. The room inside went silent. The prayers stopped completely. Everyone watched as the lawyers stood in the center of the living room. Advocate Abebe looked around calmly and asked in a clear voice, "Who is Samuel Ndezai?" Samuel smiled, chest slightly raised. He stepped forward proudly. "I am." There was no hesitation in his voice. The lawyer held his gaze for a moment. Then he spoke just as calm as before. "You need to step outside." The smile on Samuel's face froze. The room shifted. The air changed. And in that single moment, everything began to fall apart. Samuel stepped outside slowly, still trying to look confident. The rain had stopped, but the air felt heavy. Everyone followed, forming a loose circle around the entrance. No one wanted to miss what was happening. Advocate Kofi Abebe opened his briefcase calmly. He did not rush. He did not raise his voice. He simply pulled out a thick file of documents and looked directly at Samuel. "I am here to clarify ownership of this property and all related assets under Uamana Group," he said. Samuel gave a short laugh. "There is no confusion. I am the head of the family now." A few relatives nodded nervously. The lawyer did not react. He continued, "6 months ago, the late Mzee Emmanuel Uamana legally transferred full ownership of the mansion, all company shares, properties and primary accounts." He paused. To his daughter, Nyasha Uamana. Felt like the ground shifted. For a second no one spoke. Then whispers exploded across the driveway. People turned to look at Nyasha, who was standing quietly near the gate. Samuel's smile slowly disappeared. "That's impossible," he said quickly. "I would know." Advocate Abebe calmly handed him the documents. Signed, stamped, registered, witnessed, final. The papers shook slightly in Samuel's hands as he flipped through them. Every page carried official seals. Every signature was real. Dates. Legal confirmations. There was no mistake. The mansion. The companies. The land. The accounts. All in Nyasha's name. Not shared. Not partial. Complete ownership. Samuel let out a nervous laugh, but this time no one joined him. "This must be some error," he muttered. "We're married. That makes it mine too." The lawyer's voice stayed steady. "No, sir. It does not." Silence fell again, deeper than before. And then it hit him. He had locked the true owner of the house outside her own door. In front of everyone. The power he thought he had was never his. And now everyone knew it. Samuel's confidence drained away right there in the driveway. The papers were still in his hands, but now they looked heavy. His eyes moved from the documents to Nyasha, then back again as if hoping the words would change. He walked toward her slowly. "Nyasha, please," he said under his breath, trying not to let the others hear. "We're married. This is our home. We can fix this." There was no power left in his voice. No pride. Just fear. A few minutes ago he had been announcing ownership. Deciding who could enter. Standing tall in front of her relatives. Now he was whispering. Nyasha looked at him calmly. Her face was steady. No tears. No anger. Just clarity. This was the man who had shut the door in her face while her father's funeral prayers were happening inside. The man who told her she didn't understand money. The man who slowly pushed her out of her own family's legacy and tried to take it for himself. And now he was afraid. "Say something," he begged quietly. "Don't do this to me." She did not raise her voice. She did not insult him. She did not remind him of what he had done. She simply turned to Advocate Abebe and nodded once. That was enough. Within minutes, 2 security officers who worked for the estate stepped forward. They had been watching the situation carefully, waiting for clear instruction. Now they had it. They approached Samuel respectfully but firmly. "Sir, you need to leave the property." He looked around for support. No one moved. No one defended him. The same relatives who had stayed silent when Nyasha was humiliated now stayed silent again. The officers gently but firmly escorted him down the driveway. In front of everyone. The same crowd. The same eyes. The same public stage. The only difference was who stood inside the gate. Nyasha did not smile. There was no celebration in her expression. She simply watched as Samuel was led away. Her back straight, her face calm, her silence stronger than any words. For the first time in a long time she felt something she had almost forgotten. Free. The moment Samuel's car disappeared at the end of the street, the energy around the mansion shifted again. The same relatives who had stood quietly just an hour ago slowly began walking toward Nyasha. Their faces looked different now. Softer. Her aunt was the first to speak. Nyasha, my child, we didn't know. We were confused. Everything happened so fast. One of her cousins added quickly. Yes, we thought Samuel was handling things legally. We didn't want to interfere. Another relative reached for her hand. You know we would never disrespect you on purpose. Nyasha listened without interrupting. She noticed how their tone had changed, how their shoulders were no longer stiff, how their eyes held a new kind of respect, or maybe not respect, recognition. She understood something clearly in that moment. People are uncomfortable around pain, but they respond quickly to power. When she was standing outside in the rain, alone and humiliated, no one stepped forward. No one defended her. Not because they hated her, but because they believed she had lost. Now that the truth was out, now that her ownership was clear, their loyalty returned. Nyasha did not argue. She did not embarrass them. She simply nodded and said, "It's a difficult day for all of us." And she meant it. She chose to forgive them. Holding anger would only make her smaller. But forgiveness did not mean forgetting. She would remember who stood silent when it mattered most. Inside the house, the funeral prayers resumed. This time she walked in through the front door without anyone blocking her. Meanwhile, Samuel vanished as quickly as his confidence had. His phone went off. Calls stopped going through. The business contacts who once chased him suddenly had other priorities. Invitations disappeared. Messages were left unread. His status had depended on borrowed power. And once that power was gone, everything else disappeared with it. Just like that. Weeks passed and the noise slowly faded. The funeral ended. The whispers stopped. The rumors died down. What remained was truth. Nyasha Uemona officially stepped in as CEO of Uemona Group. The announcement was simple. There was no drama this time. No confusion. Just facts. She sat at the head of the long boardroom table where her father once sat. The same executives who had doubted her now listened carefully when she spoke. Her voice was calm, steady, confident. She did not try to act powerful. She was powerful. Decisions that had once been made around her were now made by her. She reviewed contracts herself. She walked through construction sites in heels and a hard hat. She asked hard questions. She expected honest answers. Word spread quickly in Kigali's business circles that Nyasha Uemona was not to be underestimated. She was independent now, respected, even feared by those who once ignored her. One evening after a long day, she walked into her father's old office alone. The room still smelled faintly of his cologne and polished wood. She stood by the large glass window, looking out at the city skyline glowing under the sunset. The same view he had looked at for years while building his empire. For a moment she allowed herself to feel everything. The loss, the betrayal, the strength she had discovered inside herself. She placed her hand gently on his old desk and whispered, "They thought they buried me with my father." She paused, took a deep breath, lifted her chin slightly. "But they didn't know. He left me the throne.